Yeah. We are back. Mi raza, we are back. We are back. Con My Gente Can Read podcast. And today we are having author Alex Man. I'm not even gonna attempt it, carnal. But his name is Alex Author, and he goes by @L_Mar1994. I think it's Marroquin. Is that? Correct me if I'm wrong, carnal, but I think it's Alex Marroquin. So I am gonna have him come on the line right now, and we're gonna chop it up and just talk about structure of writing and how he does it, how he gets down. So I'm gonna bring you on, carnal.
Hey,
how's it going, brother? How's it going? How's it going, man? Nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you too. And you were actually right about like saying Marroquin because my family's from Peru, so it's all in Spanish. But yeah, like hella people always get it wrong or they just like skip over it. So like don't
That's
worry
what I
about
was
it.
like. I don't even want to attempt it, but you know what? Let me put in my Spanish vibe into it. A ver si la agarro, and then so it is Marroquin.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. No doubt, no doubt. All right, brother. Pues it's a pleasure to meet you, face to face, virtually. Now, why don't you break it down for the people that may not know of your, background as an author? Let's just break it down to where, you were born and raised, and just your, becoming a writer.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Well, I was born here in the Bay Area in Redwood City, but
Mm-hmm.
my parents were from Peru, and I kind of take the like where my parents come from, South America, as like my biggest influence of all my creative writing, whether it's like for my books or for the scripts that I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's like especially like the history because like I'm sure you know like that ever since of our indigenous ancestors have like faced horrible atrocities
Oh
by
yeah.
the Spaniards, by the Portuguese, and then every time I read about that, like all our histories, like it's just horror like nonstop. But along with claiming our pride and our power, I think we also need to acknowledge is like all the struggles and all the horrible stuff that we've been through. And
Mm,
so that's kind of like where I kind of get most of my ideas right now is to
mm,
like say I'm not sure if you're aware about like a lot of like historical events, kind of like Operation Condor, where like the
yeah.
CIA and Russia kind of like try to install their belief systems
Yeah.
on people, so all the way from Mexico all the way down to all the way to Argentina, where they had the dirty war, where they try to like kidnap all the protesters and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that's like mostly like my writing background. It's like I want to try to like incorporate all of those historical moments that like we as a people kind of faced for hundreds of years and bring them to light so that all of us can learn about it while also like enjoying like a good horror story. So like that's like what I'm trying to do right now.
So that's mainly your genre, or
Yeah, thriller and horror right now.
all right. So you say right now. So you don't have no problem in going into other, topics within like genres.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like actually, one of the first short stories that I published was it was a magical realist story called Juanita. It's actually based on a true experience from my grandma, where she actually stood up against like these two terrorists that was like who were like terrorizing all of Peru at the time,
Okay.
and I kind of I kind of like dramatized it, but just how she stood up against them, and then like basically prevented them from like taking her husband's truck and
Okay.
then just put the key inside of her dress. And it's like,
Mm.
you want his truck? You better come get me right now. And then they just backed off like that. So
Huh.
I thought that was like really cool to write about, and I thought like that, I just want to write it just straight from my mom and my grandma's mouth, because
Yeah,
like that was just one of the coolest stories that I've ever heard about my family.
yeah. There's a lot of stories that have gone untold to the new generation because of, some people don't, may not have the passion of, dictating that and writing, putting in writing, and keeping that as kind of like a, like a safe keep for the next generation to remember the past and remember, the good things and the bad things, and to not repeat the bad things. That's mainly what history is supposed to teach you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and I noticed that the newer generation aren't really interested in all that. Do you notice the same thing?
yeah. Yeah, like yeah, it's just like I actually kind of like noticed that kind of like for like the past few years is like we're like I like totally understand we're like reclaiming our pride, and like we're saying like the is like I'm not even really sure how to explain, but it's just kind of like all positive, which is not in itself a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think in order to like, understand like where we come from, we need to understand all the bad stuff that we've done to other people and to each other too.
yeah. There
Because
you go.
I know for a fact, like that for where I come from in coming from Peru, the Incas conquered other natives until like making like a big empire, and then the only reason why the Spanish took down the Inca Empire was because they have native allies who like they were sick of the Inca rulers, and then they just thought like that these random white men who came over, they just believe like like they were blessings, like they were gods. But then unfortunately, after the Inca Empire fell, the Spanish just turned their backs on them and said, "Oh, okay, we're just gonna lump you in with all them. Then we're just gonna commit our genocide against you too."
Yeah.
So I think like that's like one of the biggest myths about all the colonizing stories of South America and also Mexico too
Yeah, there
was
was
was like it
a lot of
wasn't just
slavery. A
the
lot of people don't know there was a lot of
Europeans.
slavery.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was. Yeah, no doubt. So now, as a young one, what is your memories of, just the art of writing? Were you interested in writing as a young one?
I think like ever since I was like a little kid, I just kept picking up books. It's like I
Okay.
learned to read before I could talk, as like my family would like put it like that. It's like I would always want to read, especially if it's about like an animal or something like that, or
Mhm.
like a dinosaur. It's like just something about like animals and nature always drew me when I was a kid. But especially seeing it in a book, like I just got hooked into books ever since I was little. But then I never really took part in writing books until I was like in college, until because I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know who I was back then.
Mhm.
But then maybe around like my freshman year was like I just took some creative writing classes and say, "Oh, damn, like this is pretty fun." Like I liked, writing characters based on like movies I saw or based on like stories of my family,
Yeah.
and I think that's when it kind of really like grew on me. It's like I want to create these characters based on, you know, um, to create stories and characters that have elements of where I come from, and then where like we all come from too.
Yeah.
And since then, that's just been my passion.
Yeah. That's super cool how you mentioned that you incorporate things that happen to you. I think that's really, even for myself, I notice that I do that a lot as well. I think that's where the passion is. The passion is trying to I guess extract yourself, a little piece of your own life, a little piece of your own self, and put it into a different world setting. That's I do that a lot. I notice that I try to make different worlds within the world that I already exist. You feel me? How I'm kind of getting at it?
Yeah, it's like even if you're writing like sci-fi, where it have like aliens and like laser guns all the time,
Hmm.
like there's always gonna be a little piece of you that's like trying to get out, and that's
Yeah.
like in the words, in the whether it's like the plot or maybe it's the character that's like just like you. Like no matter what fantasy crazy thing that you write about, there's always gonna be like a little piece of you, and it's like a fingerprint. Like how you write is only by your voice and your words, and there's nothing else like it. So I think that's like kind of a really cool aspect of writing that I kind of carried on.
Yeah. Now, under that same umbrella of questioning, is that a bad thing for you in your creative process when you're writing? Does incorporating too much of yourself kind of sometimes break from the story itself that you're writing at the time?
Hmm. I think it depends on what you're writing. Is like say right now, I'm writing like a thriller novel about this Cuban guy in East Germany, and like like I'm not Cuban, but maybe there's like some little character aspects that like I can take from myself and kind of help develop the character that I'm working on.
Okay.
Like maybe I can make him a little awkward. I can make him like give him a stutter, but but yeah, so like it really depends on what you want to write and how you want to write it. Is like if you're trying to write a more relatable or maybe even like an autobiography, you
Uh-huh.
you're going to put more of yourself in that character. And how comfortable with like putting yourself into that story. I think that's just like something like that you have to think about for yourself. Because like I remember when I was first writing, like I was kind of unsure about like putting like this aspect of myself because I felt like this character was me in a way, and especially like for like a horror story, he like the main character is like doing a bunch of crazy stuff out there, and I was like, oh man, I'm not really like that. But even if you write something crazy, it's actually good that you put a little bit of yourself in them. Like it's just up to you on how much you want to put yourself in there, even if it's just like a little bit. But no matter what you write, there's always gonna be a little piece of yourself in there.
Yeah. Do you ever drop like clues in your books in terms of that only your close relatives will know what you're talking about? They can figure out by certain things that you write in there, like, oh, that's Alex when he was younger. He's mentioning something about. You ever drop something like that in your stories?
I only got published like a couple of times, but actually, I think the more things I create, like you said, it's like I'll just end up putting like little things like that, and then like maybe like my close friends, my family is like maybe when they pick up those books, they're like, oh yeah, that's such an Alex thing to do,
Okay.
and like that's actually something I think that'll be pretty funny actually. Now I'm thinking about it, but because like so far I haven't really done much things like that. Like I
Okay.
put like maybe some behavior, some actions that I've
Uh,
done into my characters, but not really like something like deep from my childhood.
uh,
So like, but maybe for like later for like other books, that can be like
yeah.
a great idea just to like show my family and all that.
Yeah, no doubt. So like when you started writing, when you actually like decided like, I actually can make my own stories and
Hmm.
I'm gonna venture into this world of, storytelling. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you begin? Like what was your initial go-to resource to start, learning how to do this?
Well, like the very first thing I would do was is to like make an outline and Uh, I'm not sure if like you know about like the process of an outline, but like about that time is like when I do like my research or like the subject that I'm going to be writing about, and then like I like to like map out what I'm writing, like like for example for the book that I'm working on now, I'll just like make like a list of notes on my phone,
Mm,
and then just like write a little paragraph for like each chapter. It's like oh for chapter one, I just write like a little basic description of it.
yeah.
But then like in the end, it's like no matter. It's like you can prepare and map things out all you want, but even as you're writing itself with all the notes in your hand, sometimes your mind will just pick up an idea, and then
Oh,
you'll just want to like write it down, and
mm,
that's just all part of the process. Because um like you still want to have that map and that guide that you created with your outline, but don't be afraid if like something else comes up like as you're writing like your first draft,
yeah.
and then like oh you'll just want to write it down. Like just write it down, and then maybe if it doesn't work with your original plan, then you can just take it out. Like you can always rewrite, re-edit a bunch of times until it's like good for you.
Mhm.
So I would say like as you're writing those drafts, just like don't be afraid to like kind of break away from your from that outline from that guide, because you'll always have that outline that you wrote, in the
Yeah.
end to kind of like help you bring you back to like what you want to write in the first place.
Hmm. All right. So now these techniques, would you say you got them from school, or is that something you found out on your own?
Um, I did go to I did like a major in creative writing and like well it's like an emphasis on creative writing, and I did get a lot of techniques from that, and I am really grateful and appreciative of like everything that I learned from like a university. But honestly, now with like YouTube and then all these there's like
Mhm.
hella, you know, like those master classes that
Yeah.
like, you can take, you can even just like check out a book about creative writing, then how
Mm.
and then it'll have everything on there. I guess the short answer of that is it is good to like go to a school for it, but you don't absolutely need to. Like really all you like at the bare minimum is just read the kinds of books that you want to write. Like if you want to write thriller or romance, then read real thriller and romance books. And then you'll learn everything on your own. And then if you want to learn how to outline, take notes, then you can just go to the internet or just read a creative writing book, but like
Mm.
Stephen King or like another master at it.
Yeah. I'm surprised Stephen King doesn't have his own master class. I've checked out R.L. Stein's master class, but Stephen King's not
Um,
on there. I'm like, what? He should be.
I know, right? But like, there's like quite a few authors not on there. Like,
Yeah,
James
true.
Patterson was like
Uh-huh.
one really famous one that I
Mhm.
saw, and I actually kind of thought about, it, but then in the end, it's like, oh, it's like I like if I really wanted to like learn a technique or anything like that, there are other means than like spending hella money too. But if
Yeah,
it's really worth it for you, then go for it. But I'm just saying like that you don't absolutely need it, like to like go to a 4 year university just for creative writing.
yeah. Did you ever attend any workshops?
Oh yeah, I did. What was the workshop? The last one? Oh, actually, um, like I met like some people through this app called Meetup, and then they actually have like a lot of like writers groups of like people from your local area and people from like kind of farther away. Like you can find like writers groups who maybe write in the same genre or maybe just other people who like to write in general, and they will set up workshops like maybe every week. So I think I'm going to have one maybe around like next week,
Oh,
and then that's a good opportunity for me to like just write or to show what I'm working on.
yeah.
So there's always groups out there, that are like hosting workshops. Like a lot of like universities too, likes to host workshops. Some of them you do have to pay, but if you just dig deep enough,
Yeah.
then you can find like workshops that are more available, more local, and that don't cost a lot to attend. So there is
Hmm.
always something out there if you really want to have that workshop experience.
No doubt. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. You gotta just look into it. Um,
Yeah.
Now as for having your own voice, bro, like having your own voice in the story, like, cause like you mentioned, like you read a lot of books, same type of genre, like the one that you're interested in. But how
Mhm.
do you do it to extract only what you like to incorporate in your own story, your own way, your own style, without having to sound like the ones that you were reading? How do you do that?
Well, for me, it just takes practice. So just like write some random short story, like just for you, or just like write an excerpt of a book like that you're working on. And then like as you read as you read more books, and then as you keep writing, you'll just find your own voice. It's like riding a bicycle.
Uh,
Like sometimes you fall off, sometimes you like write something that's like cliche or it's like just like something else. But as you keep practicing, like you will find your own voice.
hmm,
Like it's just part of like being a writer.
okay.
Like at some point, you will just see what you write, or you'll just read it out loud. You'll be like, this sounds pretty good. Like this sounds something like that like that I will read, or that others will read, but like I know that it's in my own style. So it just takes a lot of practice and a lot of reading. Just like reading authors that you like, and then um, just like taking just like taking like little elements from them, and
Yeah.
then just putting it into your own work.
Mm. Now, we mentioned before that we incorporate things that we've seen already, like, in our experience, our lives. We
Yeah.
incorporate things that, of people that we know. Now, in your
Mhm.
eyes, how much do we, what do we owe as writers incorporating other people that we know and little things about them into our stories? What do we owe them as for that to do that? Like, do you ever feel like I think I owe this person something because I put part of his life in here. He might not know it, but
um, I guess I never really had that feeling, but
oh,
I think sometimes, like if I really admire a writer or maybe like a character that he created, then a lot of so what like a lot of authors like to do is like they would like to live they would like to leave like maybe little homages, make like maybe
uh-huh.
they'll like say like a piece of dialogue that the that the other author or a character that they wrote would say or do. It's like maybe they will like make a character based off the image of the author or another character that they work on.
Mm,
I think they call like little tributes to like other writers that they admire,
yeah,
and I think like as I write more books, like I know like there's a lot of writers that like I really admire, especially Mario Vargas Llosa. He's a Peruvian writer, and then he wrote a lot about like fictionalized events of Peruvian history. And when I perfect my craft is like like when I really know that I'm good at it, that I'm making successful books. Like I definitely want to honor him because like he has been one of the biggest inspirations as an author. Especially since I'm Peruvian myself. And then like seeing like another Peruvian's work, like being done so well. I know for sure like that in the future, I will want to like honor him as you said, like maybe through like a character or a piece of dialogue, like that he created like a long time ago. But yeah,
mm,
it's like definitely through tributes, I would say.
okay. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of the vocabulary that you incorporated into your stories, you got them from reading and from learning just in general, just vocab from school, right? What would
Yeah.
you what would you tell like someone starting up how they can or the importance of using like you know I guess you could say longer, harder words.
Hmm.
Um, what is the importance of that, and is it necessary to use words that you may not use on the daily?
Honestly, like especially when I first started writing, that's like one of the biggest like that's like one of the biggest challenges I face because because even after going to like a 4 year university, and like reading hella books and like watching like a lot of movies, like just in my writing, I just didn't find myself using like those big
Yeah,
extravagant words. Like maybe it's just like if you and far in between, but I'm not like like Edgar Allan Poe who writes like super eloquently,
yeah,
have like big descriptions, and I say to all those authors or to all those writers who are afraid of like sounding dumb, you don't have to use big words to tell a good story.
mm,
Like you can just use your everyday language, and then just like be your truest self, and then like just like use story and plot techniques from like the writers that you admire from like the books that you read, and then just like with your language, it'll be great on its own. It's like you don't have to be a walking dictionary to be a good writer.
yeah,
I think that's kind of like some BS because I know um I've gotten kind of like some smack like when I was in college and I was writing some short stories and they're like, oh, just like use this big word to like describe this one thing. But honestly, you kind of don't have to. Is like the whole point of you writing a novel or a film or or anything like that. The whole point of it is just to tell a story. Like you're not trying to teach your audience new words.
mm,
But I guess if you do really want to use a specific word, then I would just like look up in Google, just like type in like, oh, like what's a good synonym or an antonym
Hmm.
for like big or tall, then it'll just give you like a big list of like other words to use. So like so there's always Google too to like kind of help you out, and there's like a lot of like writers resources out there that will give you like a whole list of like different words like that you can use, because that's something like a lot of writers, like even you know beginners and more advanced writers kind of have trouble with sometimes. It's like we're not walking dictionaries. It's like sometimes we have trouble coming up with like certain words too, and there's always resources out there.
Yeah, there sure is. There sure is. You just gotta dig deep in there and look. Google, the internet. What I mean. Besides
Yeah,
social media,
like, is this
there's
there? Is
great
this
things.
free? You know?
There's great things out there to learn online. And not just social media. Um, so now in the beginning, what was the hardest part? Like, what would you get stuck a lot when you started writing, or even now, even nowadays? What do you get stuck a lot?
Mhm. Like right now, like honestly, for me, like right now, it's just like sticking with an idea that like I like for a story. Cause like right now, I'm like I honestly just started writing this novel, but it took me how long? Like weeks or even like a month trying to come up with the idea of the novel. Cause like at first it was about like this what was it before? It was about like a spy going to America, but then like as I outline and write it, I just didn't like it. I just like it just doesn't sound like something I would write, or it just doesn't sound, it just wasn't something that I liked. So I would just scrap it completely. Then
Hmm.
I'll make like a new outline about this other topic. But then I didn't like that either, so I just scrapped that other.
Oh.
Um, and then it was about like maybe like the third or fourth attempt at an outline, or like my third or fourth attempt, like making my set of characters, and then I finally found something that I like, and I finally was able to write like the first chapter, without being confused or without being like, always have this gnawing feeling in my head that like, oh, this just isn't good enough.
Hmm.
So it takes time sometimes to like really find the idea that you like, and sometimes you will have to rewrite, even your outline. Sometimes you'll just have to scrap it, just because you just don't like it, and that's
Hmm.
normal. So to any writers who are like in this writer's block, just don't worry about it. Just like keep writing notes, just like keep writing that story, and then if it really does sound that bad to you, you can either just leave it alone for like a few months or like a few weeks, or you can just delete it and just start writing new.
Hmm.
Like there's no problem with starting over.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. What is your process in creating a character that really sticks? Like a character that can really have like stand on its own and not having to, you know, accompanying a lot of different aspects to be able to have him like be remembered even after you're done reading the book.
Yeah. Um, So what I like to do is like I like to write character bios, and I think that's like what like a lot of writers would like to do. It's like you don't only just make up the name or the age, like you try to create like a whole backstory that like you feel will kind of like capture people's interest.
Mm.
Um, like like in my second book, that's like kind of like that I'm like waiting, that I'm like giving time to just to settle, is a Cuban spy that like he got brainwashed by the communist Cubans, and then like now he's like on a rampage because like he remembers that torture.
Mm.
And then he like remembers like all the pain that he felt, but then later on he like learns that like he did hella bad stuff, and then now he feels a new guilt, and then he's not sure whether to like keep going in this crusade against Castro's regime, or if he should just move on and just like find a good life. So I think, and like that's my favorite thing about writing, is creating like these characters with like backstories and interesting histories, and I think that's a process that like I like to do the most.
Mm.
But my biggest tips for that would be, just like write down like a whole page, like telling the whole backstory, as much backstory as you can for the characters that you want your readers to remember the most.
Mm. Now, as you outline and do all this backstory for characters, how do you
Mhm.
know what to put or what not? Because you'll be probably writing a couple pages sometimes just for a
Mhm.
character, right? How do you know how to like filter out? Because you can't put everything down. Like,
Yeah,
how do
for
you know
sure.
when to stop to talking about his backstory?
Mm. Well, the best way to like give out like the backstory of a character, well, for me anyways, is like through dialogue and the actions that
Hmm.
the character takes. Like I try to make as much about the plot itself as I can. Like say, like for this character that I just finished writing, like say I would take him through this business that like he owned a long time ago before he got kidnapped, and he's just like remembering all this stuff about like what he used to do and like how he lived with his family. But then I don't stick with it too long because just like I just said, like he has to move on, he has to do other things, and I think as a writer, like you just have to find ways to kind of like sprinkle it along the main plot without like giving too much all at once
Hmm.
because you want the reader to like really want to keep turning the page because he wants to learn more. So yeah, so I think that's like what I like to do. It's just to like reveal these moments through like actions, through dialogue, and then occasionally through a flashback, like maybe like a bad dream or something like that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Um, do you ever get ideas in your dreams or while you're out in stores or something like that? And if so, do you how do you capture? I mean, how do you remember that? Do you like walk around with a notepad, or I mean, you put it in your phone?
Yeah, like I have this note app on my phone, and then like I'm always like carrying it with me. So I'm like, oh, like all of a sudden I think of an idea, like I just kind of pull myself to the side and I'll just like type it down because
Mm,
like I know that like I would like I'm like super forgetful all the time. So it's like I have to write it down or else
mm,
I'm just gonna lose it.
yeah.
And then like when I come back to it later, I see all these notes. I say, "Oh damn! Like this is really cool. Like I didn't know I came up with this."
Man, I get the most craziest like ideas for stories in my dreams. That's why I keep a notepad next to me like on my
Yeah,
nightstand. Because I'm like I sometimes I even get up at 3, 4 in the morning with these ideas. I'm like, yo, I gotta write this down. You know?
yeah, right.
Yeah. Now with all these ideas, I'm sure you're getting like sometimes even 2, 3 different ideas for 3 different stories. Like, how do you do it to just keep those notes for these other stories away and not be tempted to write 2 or 3 stories at a time? How do you do
Yeah.
that?
I just choose one, and then I kind of just like push myself just to like not move on to these other ideas until I finish at least like maybe like a few chapters of the first idea that I chose.
Hmm, okay, that's dope. So, your first book, can you talk about that one?
Oh yeah, it's called Savages for Revenge, and it's a very unique horror story. So basically, it's about an artist, Derek D'Souza, who's he's like failing in art. He's like not making his rent, and
Mm,
he's just so close to ending it all. But then
dang.
he gets a call from this beautiful girl in Argentina, saying like, "Oh, like I want a moment with you. I need to talk to you about something." And then he just takes that as an excuse just to like drop everything in America, and then come all the way to Argentina um, just to be like re-inspired for his art. But then
Mm,
really he just wants to see her. He just wants an excuse like just to drop everything and just to be with this girl. But then not even the first day when he lands, he gets taken into by this shadowy figure of a guy. He's like crazy. He's like a cannibal, and he's been a cannibal since he was like a little kid. Because of the be like just because of the way that his parents raised him to be, but then he's like so hell bent on like killing all of humanity, even though he knows himself like that's just not gonna work out. But
mm,
then he teaches Derek like his belief system just by like randomly killing people as they get closer to their target location,
mm,
where like ultimately like this like the antagonist or like the terrorist guy, he like has this big finale, and like along the journey, like we see Derek kind of like uncovering his own hidden memories of like when he had like an equal murdering spree when like, he was a kid, but he had
Mm.
long suppressed because like he got caught and then like he and then they had to go away. But then like the more he spends time with his character, the more like of his real self comes out, and then he has to decide like whether he wants to like remain like a normal human being or if he wants to continue living free as the terrorist guy calls it, and just continuing just like killing people and like running around. So that's like the big dilemma like that he has to like find out for himself.
Wow. So it's like a psychological type thing too, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool. Now, when you do something like that, like psychological thrillers or horror stories, how much do you research about the symptoms and these type of mental illnesses to be able to make it
Yeah.
sound like realistic?
Oh yeah, it's like a lot of research because like I had to look up into like a lot of things about like serial killers and like why they did the things like that they did. I had to look up about cannibalism because like that's like a huge theme
Yeah.
in the book, and like not and then like not only about like just like eating human meat, but also like how eating human flesh actually damages your brain because
Mm.
like, if you eat too much human flesh, it like basically rots your brain. Then it affects like your judgment, it affects your motor skills. It actually makes you crazy the more you do it. But then
So
this
that
terrorist
that
group,
makes
yeah,
sense with they say that the elite do all that crap. I'm all
yeah.
like I'm all like that makes sense. Kanye West probably does that.
Oh my god.
But
Oh
no, but
man.
yeah, like that's something that a lot of people don't consider when I mean, you enjoy it, you enjoy the
Yeah.
process, but someone that's just starting up is
Hmm.
like doesn't understand that they have to go into it with making it sound realistic.
Hmm.
Make and there's I mean, easily a reader would be able to tell, like, oh no, this guy, he didn't do his research. Like, you can tell when you're talking about something that has to do with like a psychological problem.
Yeah.
You can tell, like, um
Oh yeah, for sure.
have you ever caught that in other books that you've read, like, oh, I don't like it because it's not, it doesn't do this, or it's lacking this or whatnot, and then used it for your own what not to do in your own stories?
Yeah, definitely. There's this one book that I actually recently read. It's called Cannibal Jungle, and
Mm.
it was pretty good. I like it's like had a lot of elements of those cannibal horror films from like, the '80s, like Cannibal Holocaust and like from Eli Roth's movies. But he didn't really get into the um, a really sad fact, like a really sad fact about most of these cannibal stories is like they don't go into the lives of the native people who like who are portrayed being like crazy and evil. Is like most of the time they're just trying to defend themselves, or they're like trying to maintain onto their traditions, because like a lot of like companies and governments are constantly trying to cut down the forest that they live in, or they're doing their own massacres of the native people. And so, of course, like when a non Amazonian guy sees like this cannibal horror, like they don't know what to think of it except like that it's just really bad. And so, hopefully, like I can write like maybe better stories that can go more into from the perspective of those native people because
Yeah.
because like I want to honor them, because like they've been through like a lot, especially like right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, when it came down to already you finishing the book, when is
Hmm.
the right time? I mean, for you, when do you know a book is done?
Oh man, for my first book, it was like a really long time. But honestly, when I was writing like my first book, I didn't really know what I was doing at first. Like I wrote a whole novel, but even after writing it, I printed it out, like I just didn't like it. So I basically spent a whole year working on a book that I didn't like. So I scrapped that. It doesn't exist anymore. And so I started working on Savages for Revenge. Like I started reading about these different nature extremist groups. I started reading about cannibalism, and then I got that passion again. Which and then that process, with all the research, the outlining, that took months. And
Mm.
then like by the time that I finally got the draft down, like another year had passed.
Wow.
So in creating like my first book, it's been like more than 2 years before it finally hit the shelves.
Wow.
Um, and then it took more time for like me to first find a good publisher that actually liked it, and then finally I just ended up self-publishing it too, in order to like just to get more readers just to look at it. So it just depends like how prepared you are, and like how fast that like, you do the research, how much you write every day. Because when
Mm.
you make a book, you have to make a schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna write like once a week, but then not even do it. You have
Mm.
to dedicate yourself at least like 20 minutes, at least an hour, at least 2 hours every day, so
Yeah.
that you make that deadline for yourself.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So when you say that you pretty much like when like chopped your book, right? You pretty much send it to all these publishers and they denied you, or you just they didn't. I mean, what was the response? Because a lot of people like they get down because of
Mm.
they they say no that we can't publish a
Yeah.
book or whatnot. Like, what was the response?
Yeah, like I like sent my first book to like I think maybe 3 or 4 publishers, and then actually like all of them denied me. It wasn't until I was working as a freelance editor for this one horror publishing company,
Hmm.
and then I was just like, hey, I like to write horror too, so would you mind like reading like a book that I'm working on? And then they just liked it all of a sudden, and I was like really surprised because like, of course, after being rejected 4 times,
Hmm.
like I was in that hopelessness state too. Like I was kind of getting close to kind of like giving up on writing as a whole. Um, but honestly, you can be denied like 10, 12 times because that's just the life of a writer. It's like um like you'll just keep getting rejection letters. You'll be denied by publishers, but just because that happens to you doesn't mean that you have to stop writing.
Yeah.
Your book is good. It's just sometimes it's just not the right publisher, or it's just not the right time. But you have to keep pushing your work out there because there is someone that believes in your work and that will invest in you. So
Hmm.
just keep push yourself out there. Just like talk to people. Just like like even just share it on social media if you have it. But
Hmm.
but yeah, like you just have to keep pushing yourself out there because even people like Stephen King or the author of Harry Potter, they got rejected a bunch of times too.
They
Like
did.
J.K. Rowling got rejected like 12 times before
Hmm.
finally someone got her first Harry Potter book, and then look where she is now. Like
Hmm.
one of the most famous authors out there.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
so
No
yeah,
doubt.
just
Yeah. No. Yeah. Now, as for your as for the letters, what did they say like why they didn't want to publish a book, or just
I,
that they denied you?
I don't know. It's actually very rare that they actually tell you the reason why.
Oh, they don't tell you.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, because honestly, it's like a lot of publishers are like usually swamped. Like they have so many books from like different
Yeah.
writers that, and then they're just getting piles and piles of like books and manuscripts,
They have a
and then
default
like right,
letter.
and then like honestly, it's like sometimes they just don't even have the time to write you like a detailed response.
Hmm.
Sometimes if you ask them nicely, they can, but
Hmm.
don't expect them to like tell you why.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be a perfect book, but it's just not in the market, or it's
Mm.
just not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But that's just another reason why you just have to keep pushing your book to different publishers,
Yeah.
because it is the right time somewhere. You know, it just might not be the right time at that moment.
Okay. So when you went the self-publishing route, um,
Hmm.
who edits for your stories mostly?
Oh, even though I'm an editor, and and to anyone who wants to self-publish, it is very important for you to like hire an editor, you
Mhm.
know, and then sometimes it is gonna cost you some money.
Mhm.
Sometimes it might be very expensive too, but honestly, it's like worth it because if you invest in your book, then it'll return to you, like
Mhm.
you know, like all the money that you spent on.
Mhm.
Because like a lot of people, what they do is like they'll just write a book, maybe one, two drafts, and then they just put it on the shelves, you know, like in Amazon or whatever.
Mhm.
But then what happens is like they're not making any sales, and then they're just getting bad reviews, just like, oh, this guy can't spell dog, you know, or oh, like oh, so many comment errors that they get distracted by it. It's
Mhm.
like you need a professional set of eyes to like polish your book for the publishing world because it can get really hard out there, you know, and then especially if your book isn't as good as polished and clean of errors as possible, then people will notice, you know, and then they will tear it apart,
Mhm.
and then it'll just become a failure at launch.
Yeah. Hmm. So as you released your book as a self-publisher, as a
Hmm.
self-published author, now what was the next step for you? What did you already have in mind how you were going to distribute these copies or
Mm.
yeah.
So what I did was I just published through Amazon because they have a pretty good service. They even do like a cover layout. But yeah, it's like I always knew like that like if I wanted to go through self publishing, I'll just go through Amazon. Um, especially since especially since like that I'm new like that I don't have a lot of like resources on me right now. So that was just like the best option. But for what it is actually pretty good. Um, like they'll give you you know like a decent percentage of like whatever sells, and then but that's all Amazon really does unless you like you know pay the extra money to market.
Mm,
But I had to do the marketing all by myself, and I knew that since the very beginning. Like, oh, if I wanted to self-publish, I'm gonna have to do all the marketing because like no matter how good your book is, no one's gonna read it if no one knows about it. So
mm,
that's why I just worked my butt off on like growing my Instagram followers by making a website, by making a blog, and just trying to upload content. You know, just trying to make readers aware about what I'm writing on or what I'm working on, like as often as I can.
yeah,
Because yeah, because like you need a growing audience, you know, if you want success for your books. And
yeah.
most of the time, like after you or before you publish, even you know you'll want to you'll want a strong support base for your work.
No doubt, no doubt. Um, Tell us the importance of networking uh,
Oh yeah.
within like fellow authors.
Hmm. Yeah, like networking is honestly one of the biggest, you know, things like that you need as an author. And I know it is hard for me because I'm like really shy. Like I don't like to talk to or like go on big outings a lot. But
Mm,
especially right now during COVID, you know, like a lot of networking events are virtual.
yeah.
And I think I said before there's like a lot of groups on Meetup where you just meet like-minded people and you can tell them about your work. But yeah, it's really important. But you know, go on social media, go on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you know, like find groups, find workshops that work with authors and writers like you,
Mhm.
and then just connect with people. You know, like ask for their emails. I mean, ask nicely. You know, like I mean, like actually try to be their friend, because in the end, like the more friends you make, the more chances like that one of them will actually help you out.
Mhm.
And like that, and then like that's what I did for my like when I was working as an editor for the horror publishing company, Hellbound Books. Is like me and the lead editor were actually really close, and then like he actually took the time to like read my book on top of everything else and like give me really good feedback, and before accepting it as a book to be published.
Yeah.
So so like even though it might be hard to like get out there and like try to talk to a lot of people, it is really important that you do. Just like go on groups, go online, meet people, just tell them about what you're working on with pride. Is like no one's gonna look at your work if you're like all scared and like oh you're nervous to talk about it. No, and then like oh they're gonna think oh if you're oh it looks like that you don't like what you're talking about, so why should I
Mhm.
read it? You
Yeah.
know, you're writing it, be proud of it. No matter how messed up, how much sex and violence has in it, be proud of it. And say it to those publishers with pride and with power. Because if they see that you enjoy it, that you believe in it, then they will too.
Mm. That's great. Input into that. Now, as for the your books, like just in general, do you
Mhm.
ever see them, or do you ever consider one day maybe working on, putting together maybe even a short film for one of them, like actually making it as a film?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like actually, the second book that I did actually started out as a screenplay for a film that I thought of.
Okay.
But then like the more that I wrote it down, I just started putting details and I added more backstory for the characters. I was like, you know what? This might just start off as a book. Why don't I just write it as a book? And then
Mm.
it turned into a novel, a novella.
Okay.
But I do really want to write for movies, and then right now I'm actually working on a script. Like I finally got down the outline process pretty good, and then I finally have a good idea I want to write about. But let me tell you, like writing for movies is a whole different animal
Oh
than
yeah.
writing for a book. Oh yeah, for sure. Because for novels, like you can put as much backstory, you can put a monologue,
Mm.
like it's more internal, and then it's more descriptive. But with the script, it's more visual. It's like when you watch a movie and you're looking at the character, you're not hearing what he's thinking
Mm-mm.
or you don't know what he's feeling unless he talks to another character.
Mm.
So when you're running a script, you have to write on a visual level. Like you have to like along with your outline of a script, which is also different from a book outline. Like you have to think of it. Oh, like how's it going to be on a movie? How's it going to be on a screen in front of me? And then you have to use like a different set of descriptions, a different set of words, just to describe the same scene that you would write in a book. But
Yeah.
honestly, it is really fun for me. It's just like I like writing movies, and and then just like with writing books, it's actually even more true for writing film. Like that, you have to network, you have to know people too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, initially, were you seeing your stories as a film in your mind already? Because a lot of my writing comes in that way to me. Like I see the scene, like I see,
Mhm.
what's going on around the scene, around the characters, like a movie. You're able to see it. Do you ever see
Yeah,
it that way?
yeah. Actually for my book writing, that's how I write my scenes. It's like I kind of just play it out in my head, but then of course I also write in like what they're feeling, like how
Mm.
they're talking to each other. Oh, excuse me. It's like yeah, like no matter what I'm writing, like it's always playing out in my head, like just like a movie. It's only how I put it down on paper or on a computer that's like the difference.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So, how long did it take you to start, or were you already working on the second book while you were working on the first one, or how long did it take you to start the second one?
Right after I published my first book, I just jumped to my second book. And I think that's really important for like writers to like consider is like don't stop like for a long time after you wrote your first book or your first short story. Like keep writing, like keep thinking of new ideas because like you have to keep your creative mind going or else it's just gonna die down and then it's gonna take you forever to get it started again.
Now, did it ever confuse you, like going into the second book? Did you ever go like, oh man, wait, I'm writing certain things that I was writing on the first book? You ever go, kind of get confused and stuff?
Not if like I know exactly what I'm writing about, and of course, like having the outline helps.
Hmm.
So like that I know all the characters and I know what they want, I know what they're going for, and yeah, so like just like knowing what I want my second book to be about, it really helps like avoiding writing the exact same thing as my first book, even though that the topics might be similar, or might be in a similar setting. Like as long as you know what's going on, as long as you write down what you want from each chapter, you won't have any trouble, running into the same things that you did for your first book.
I guess what I'm kind of like picturing as an issue would be because like some people remember certain, like they remember faces and stuff like that. Do you ever like imagine the faces of these characters? You ever go into it already thinking like, okay, they look like this, and that image of that face, even though you're creating it, so it's not like you're actually
Mhm.
seeing it before, but you're creating it. How do you make it so that it sticks in your mind and like you don't get it confused, like from the
Yeah.
second book?
Um, like writing down a character bio, like writing down, like actually writing down what they look like really helps. Like let the um like for example, like the character from my second book is this big gordito guy, like a huge Cuban guy with like long hair, hella
Okay.
oily, hella sweaty. But then the guy from my first book, Derek D'Souza, he's like a skinny white guy. So
Mm,
so like what I like to do is like write down what they look like and like write down their descriptions so that like you said, it's like I don't get them confused, or I don't write down like these, or I don't end up writing the same character twice.
mhm.
So and then of course if they sound similar, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I can give them maybe I can make him a different color, or I can make him speak a different language, or give him like different features. Yeah, just like little tricks like that where just like writing them down helps a lot. It's like basically what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Now, I seeing that you're married. You're have a family and all that. And how do you? I mean, to someone that has, I mean, a job and is just constantly
Mm,
doing things. It's not just that you just write and that's all you do. Like, it's not. People have a life. You know what I mean? Like, how do you set time aside to and build up that habit? How did you build up that habit to have set time aside to write and just nothing else can distract you? You probably turn your phone off, like you're set on writing on a certain time every day. How did you build that up?
um, man, what I say? Um, you just have to make a habit of it. Like you have to set a schedule for yourself. Like every day for 1 hour, write from 4 to 5, or every day I write from 3:30 to 4:30. You just have to find the time, and you have to like write down like a little schedule for yourself so that you make sure that you do have the writing time. Because yeah, like I am married, and then I have a job, and I have to do like things after work too. Like I'm not just like working and then I'm just writing all day. I wish sometimes though, but yeah, it's just like life doesn't stop when you're writing,
Mm,
so you just have to make the time for it, and you have to
mm,
give yourself some discipline too, because there are days when you're just hella tired from work, especially if you're like labor intensive, or like or if you're working at a restaurant. I know that's like hella exhausting, that's hella tiring. But if you really want to be successful as a writer, like you just have to make that time, and you really have to get something down, especially if it's a first draft. Just like don't worry about it being perfect or exactly the way you want it. Like just get something down, like a paragraph, a page, 5 pages, and then just get something down, man.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's my issue sometimes. It's like, how you gonna call yourself a writer when you're not writing? And
Yeah.
I feel so like man, I need to sit down and do some stuff. But yo, so I got like 20 seconds on the because it only lets you record 1 hour on Instagram. So let me log out and log back
Mhm.
in. and I want you.